Good morning, Excellency.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding.
How are you?
Acknowledge the arrival of
Nice
the
to see you.
President of the Republic of the Fijian Islands.
Thank you for coming. Ma'am, how are you?
Major
I'm very
General
well, thank you.
Konrote.
Good morning, sir. Welcome and thank you for coming.
Oh, please think of us. So please, you are young. The world is different.
Sunrise. It is a beautiful event in and of itself. One that can lure us from the most comfortable dream-filled sleep and then inspire us to charge forward, as we did this morning, determined to make the most of the day ahead. Lovely sunrise compared to the weather the last couple of days. And to my Tatala, thank you for reminding us of Creator God. Thank you for the message, and thank you for the Holy Prayer. And of course, sunrise is the symbol of beginnings, carrying with it optimism and hope for a better future for us all. Now, that undoubtedly was one of the goals of the drafters of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights when they took up their task about 70 years ago. In response to the brutality of the early 20th century, culminating in the evils perpetrated during the Second World War, they endeavored to create a document that stated unequivocally that all human beings are born free and equal, and to enunciate a set of global ethics or principles that would ensure that all people would, in the future, be protected when their human rights were threatened. Now, the declaration that they imagined and set out to create would allow everyone to hope of better days ahead. Now, the Universal Declaration was and is a magnificent achievement. However, that does not mean that threats to people's human rights have diminished, far from it. As we, people of the Pacific, know only too well, one of the greatest challenges facing us today, which in some parts of the region jeopardizes our very existence, results from the impacts of climate change. And I think that was a lovely documentary we just seen. Now, to state just a few of the obstacles confronting us today, the latest Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC assessment, report projects for small island nations like Fiji a medium risk of loss of livelihoods, coastal settlements, infrastructure, ecosystem services, and economic stability. In the near term, from years 2030 to 2040, and a very high risk in the long term, years 2080 to 2100. Major climate-related security concerns for the Pacific Islands include access to fresh water due to the changes in rainfall patterns and saltwater intrusion, local food supply, damage to coral reefs, declining fisheries, and impacts on agriculture, and infrastructure damage through rising sea levels, other flooding, bad storms, and damage. In the face of such monumental, even existential challenges, how have we reacted? In many ways, far too many, in fact, to outline here, however. At the top of any list must be Fiji's presidency of COP23 of the UN Climate Change Convention, which ends in a matter of weeks when we hand over the baton to Poland. As many observers have noted, as the first small island developing state to lead the international community in the fight against climate change, Fiji has set the bar very high. Our starting point was a refusal to accept that enough is being done to address the urgent need to cap global warming at the most ambitious target of the Paris Agreement, that is 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial age. Instead, as the president of COP23 and co-chair of the inaugural United Nations Oceans Conference, we have helped build a grand coalition of states, regions, communities, investors, and ordinary citizens who are focused on working together to meet the climate challenge. Now, we have introduced the Talanoa concept of respectful and inclusive decision making into the UN system. And at COP24, we will co-host with Poland a Talanoa session between the world's climate change ministers. The essence of the Talanoa is that it builds empathy and trust by sharing not only the achievements of countries and communities, but also by sharing the challenges and initial failures. Now, we have all achieved much by trial and error, and by sharing our experiences, we build trust and enable a shared pathway together to save our future and that of the next generation. Now, most importantly, our stories will share journeys taken by people and communities to reduce the harm we do to our environment. Now, Talanoa stories we have shared this year have brought people closer to the climate negotiations and discussions. Ultimately, the success of the United Nations and of the Universal Declaration depends on our ability to put people first. Now recognized as a world leader on climate change, Fiji will continue to exercise its moral authority to press the world's nations to redouble their efforts to confront and defeat the global warming challenge. Now, of course, we have not traveled alone on this journey. Many nations, organizations, and individuals have assisted our COP campaign with financial, moral, and practical support, and we are most grateful for that. Among them is the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. For the last 13 years, the Office has assisted Fiji, along with our Pacific neighbors, as we have endeavored to deliver the promise of the Universal Declaration, a better future for all of our people. Now, the Office has worked closely with Fiji at the Human Rights Council and at the UN Climate Change Convention to promote better understanding of the human impacts of climate change and to advocate for the integration of human rights in climate action. The Office supported Fiji as a COP23 president in organizing the first presidency event on human rights during the conference of the parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, here at home, in August, the Office signed a memorandum of understanding with the Pacific Islands Development Forum, paving the way for greater advocacy for human rights in the region. Now, one focus of this work will be respect for the right to health, specifically mental health. Now, indeed, a strong outcome of COP23 was a request by the COP President to the Director General of the World Health Organization to prepare a report on the health aspects of climate change to the COP24 presidency. Now, such reports and steps help to build greater coherence within the UN institutions and family. Now, far from being simply an historical document, the Universal Declaration has spearheaded the development of the entire international human rights framework, one that continues to respond to the needs of Pacific Islanders today in the face of climate change. Now, for example, in August this year, Fiji acceded to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, both of them the progeny of the Universal Declaration. Now, these twin covenants will provide a very strong legal framework and guidance to Fiji to further advance the realization of rights, including economic, social, and cultural rights, which have been in jeopardy due to climate change. Now, I'm happy to note that these twin covenants come into force in Fiji today, so we are making history. Congratulations to everyone who have worked so hard to make this happen. This important step, together with Fiji's election to the Human Rights Council, are especially significant in the human rights journey that Fiji has undertaken because they ensure a close and committed engagement with the human rights world and with multilateralism. It must also be remembered that there continues to be a close and symbiotic relationship between human rights, the Sustainable Development Goals, and climate change. By working with us to respond to climate challenge in a way that promotes and protects the human rights of our people, the Office of Human Rights Commissioner and the entire UN human rights system is both helping the Pacific strive to attain sustainable development that leaves no one behind, while strengthening the legacy of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I began my address with the analogy of the sun, sunrise. So let me conclude with the sun. The sun inspires us and humbles us because it is a sober reminder of our shared humanity, as it selflessly rises every day for all humanity, regardless of geography or race, the color of our skin, religion, or gender, amongst other markers of difference. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights could draw its inspiration from the sun, its rays reaching out to the farthest of humanity beyond our differences, and therein lies our shared responsibility. We thank you for this support and look forward with hope and optimism to the next 7 decades of the Universal Declaration. Almighty God bless you all and bless our beloved nation and the region. Thank you.
This is something that some of us have lived for, lived with, and actually lived because of this Universal Declaration, which is more than just a declaration, it's universal. And that's quite something that 70 years ago we managed to get something together which is universal and continues to be universal, no matter where you come from, where you're going. The motto of this year, the 70th anniversary, is the sun rising on the next 7 decades of human rights. Indeed, it's a beautiful sunrise, and I think it's an auspicious sign that the next 70 years is going to be a beautiful 7 decades, all about human rights. The Universal Declaration, or the UDHR, has now been translated into more than 500 languages. Its 30 articles are the basis for the international human rights system, and its principles are today echoed in nations' laws worldwide, making it much more than a musty old document studied by scholars. The human rights-based approach is now accepted as the path to attaining truly inclusive development, and it too can be traced back to the UDHR. The preamble of the globally agreed and universally applicable Sustainable Development Goals states that to seek and realize the human rights of all and to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. By countering discrimination, exclusion, and inequalities faced by marginalized groups, there is a human rights approach rather than a needs or a charity approach, leaving no one behind, the underlying concept of the Sustainable Development Goals. Respecting, protecting, and fulfilling human rights as stipulated in the Universal Declaration and the international human rights treaties which derive from it are vital to allow all our people to live with dignity, freedom, equality, justice, and peace. It is with profound appreciation I note the increasing countries across the region ratifying the various human rights instruments and gratitude for the efforts in reporting thereof. These steps are important when we together work to advance the national priorities and to leave no one behind. On this note, I would also like to take the opportunity, Your Excellency, to congratulate Fiji on becoming a party to 2 human rights treaties this year, and of course being elected member of the Human Rights Council of the United Nations. Your Excellency, I know very well that in all your years of work in the UN, both here in Fiji and elsewhere, that's what you've been doing as a peacekeeper, fundamentally protecting the people's rights, the rights of all people on all sides. Gathered at this spectacular setting this morning, it is easy to be awestruck by the nature that surrounds us, but also to be reminded that one of the greatest threats of development in the Pacific and indeed the whole world is climate change. Now I'm going to deviate for a second from the text, sorry Chitra, but I was just thinking, so what's climate change got to do with human rights? And I just met a colleague who's come here as a climate change / human rights expert. And as I was driving here, I said, wow, climate change is about the planet, right? It's about protecting and respecting this planet that we live on. But you know, people without a planet, pretty much the same as the planet without people. So they go together, right? So, if we are going to respect the planet, but we don't respect and protect each other, it doesn't matter in the end, does it? I think that's where it all comes together. Respecting, protecting each other as one family in this one home that we have, that we call planet Earth. Thank you very much again for coming, and I look forward to the many performances that we have this morning. Looking forward as well to the next 7 decades. Your Excellency, I hope, well, maybe not 70 years from now, but at least in the next 3-4 years, every morning we will wake up and we'll come here, you bring us here, right? All of us, to celebrate not just the declaration, but to celebrate the fact that we are alive, we're in our home, and we're together. Thank you very much.
Today, the ICCPR and the Economic Social Development Rights comes in.
Right? Ready? So. Okay? Like